Oh, 1 second. Okay. Thank you, Wine World, for joining me tonight for my sip side note. Tonight, we will be interviewing Alie and Robin of Chronicle Wines here on the North Fork of Long Island, where they are going to be featuring their new wine tasting kits, their wine flights to go. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate the time that you've taken out for me for our fun-related interview tonight featuring your wine tasting flights to go.
Hey. Hello, thank you for having us.
Yeah, good to see you, Amy.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So I wanted to share this amazing presentation. So when you order online, Wine World, you come and get it in a box, and inside you're going to get 5 wines. And this wine,
tiny bottles,
are teeny bottles here. I mean, I have small hands, but compared to a wine glass, it is not shaped.
It's so cute.
It is adorable, and I'm very excited to go through the flight tonight for August. We will be starting with the rosé, but before that, I want to know, ladies, how did you guys come up with this idea?
It was her idea.
It's my fault. Well, it came up as an idea as a way to be able to continue to taste with people even while we were in isolation and shutdown earlier this spring. And while we couldn't invite people to come to see us at our tasting room, how do we?
Well, you can come see us. You can look through the window.
Yeah, right. You can do this. But how do you actually get our wines into your mouth? And without being able to actually walk into the door, okay, how do we send the wine out the door? And when things were really raging as far as the virus and the 1,000,001 emails going around the industry about, oh, you could try this, you could try that. And one of these emails came around that said that the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau was going to allow wineries to ship small format bottles. So this is kind of like walking into a hotel room and you find those little mini bottles in the hotel fridge. And I saw that email. Yeah, it's sweet, it's cute, it's a little taste.
It's 50 mils. It's enough for 2 people to have just a little taste.
Yep.
And this is where I'm blessed to have a business partner that actually reads the SLA fine print emails.
Yeah, and so I read this. I'm like, this is freaking brilliant because this is the perfect amount to just sample and try. It's not a big commitment. You're not, buying into a case. You're not for something that's sight unseen, never tasted it, never saw it, but I'm really curious. And I thought this would be just such an amazing way to send our wine out into the world instead of waiting for the time when people could come to see us again because it was unknown when that was going to happen. And what a great way to reach people that, on a normal day wouldn't necessarily come from all the way from the other side of the country just to come see us on the other side of the country. So this way we can help people get to know who we are, the wines we make, what we do. So
I love the idea. I think it's brilliant. Not only, I love that it's in like a subscription box. You're going to be switching it up every month. I think that's very unique. And I think you're ahead of the game in that sense. I have not seen that offered anywhere else. So that really helps you stand out a lot.
Thank you. As I like to say, sometimes we know what we're doing. Sometimes.
Great wines, really.
Yeah.
Let's get started with the rosé. Can you tell me about this rosé, ladies?
So, I left the bottles in the car. I actually did bring the bottles. They're 100 feet away from us. So this is a Rosetta Rosé. So this is one of the Saltbird cellars. I don't know if you can see the tiny writing.
I'll hold it.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
This is where we're partners in all things.
Yes.
So this is a blend of Cab Franc and Cabernet Sauvignon. And I really love playing with rosé. I love that there's no rules with rosé. Whereas with white, it's like, what varietal is it? What breakdown? With rosé, it could be anything. And I love Long Island Cab Franc for rosé. As Alie knows, I'm very, very picky about my red Cab Francs. There's only a few out here that I really love, but I love every single Cab Franc rosé I've had. We did a little bit of a field blend with the Cab Sauv, so there's no exact breakdown for the percentages because it was like fill the bin, okay, and then it went straight to press, got pressed off, and that portion of it was actually completely colorless. And the color in this comes from putting a little bit of the Cab Franc into barrel. And that's why you get a little bit more texture, a little bit more heaviness in this. But it's still, like, all my rosés are very citrusy. I just can't get away from the citrus.
Well, that's your fingerprint.
Yeah, that is. That's my rosé style.
I mean, how would you describe the acidity on this?
Oh, as far as like W-set terms, I'd say it's medium less. It's not super acidic, but it's definitely, or medium plus, excuse me. It's not, you know, you're not drooling and salivating when you have it, but it definitely is fresh and bright.
Yeah. Gives you a little perky.
Yeah, fresh. That's exactly how I would describe it.
Medium plus acidity is like you have a sip, but it's still refreshing when you have the next sip. Whereas like high Rieslings, it's after a while, you're just like, you need a break. Your palate's fatigued. Your palate doesn't get fatigued with this.
Yeah, so I would have to say, no, it's very nice, very smooth on the palate. I really am not one to pair wine with food. I like to just drink it alone and savor it as much as I can on my palate. But this, I mean, this is very nice.
You have it with like really good quality prosciutto and like mozzarella. Yeah.
I was gonna say this actually has some nice, not overly heavy body, like a little bit of viscosity. Heavy.
We discovered a new word.
All right,
heavy.
that's my new thing. Heavy, but not a lot of heavy viscosity.
No,
but it does have.
It's got depth,
texture. Yeah. It's like what I like to call a little bit of. It's got a little bicep to it.
Yeah,
you know.
Well, it's got the mid palate. Like that's something with the Saltburn wines, even though they're mostly stainless steel or not new oak. It has brightness, but it's got that mid palate that sometimes you can lack in stainless steel ferments.
Yeah. Well, that's where your skill lies in those stainless steel is getting that.
I got that mid palate.
You got the mid palate. I got it.
I found it. I know exactly where
everyone should try. Let's move on to the next one.
All right. Yes. So next we're moving. Oh, it's me again. So you have this handy little kit in here that gives you a brief synopsis of the wines.
Yeah, which I might just point out that while there's the tasting guide that comes with the tasting kit, it is a brief synopsis. So we're going to be monthly doing these live tastings so that if you get the kit, you can get more in depth with us. We're going to be doing a chat like this each month. And, you know, where this is the guide inside the kit is sort of an intro to the wine. But if you have questions or just curious or want some mild form of entertainment, we will be here.
We're wine geeks too, so we have tech sheets on everything. Yeah. So if you really want to go down that rabbit hole, we've already got it.
We'll go right there with you. Yeah, we'll go right there. Yeah.
So this is stainless steel Chardonnay. It goes through full malolactic, which is why it's killer. Yeah. So 2018 vintage. Right now it's got if you've ever smelled lemon balm. It's like lemon balm and chamomile. It's very herbal, but it's not herbaceous. It's like dried chamomile, dried lemon balm. It's got the apple. And then Chardonnay out here always has this like really beautiful lemon character to it. It's like lemon zest, but it's not sour. It's not sour at all.
Yeah. It's the essence of the fruit, but without being sharp.
Almost more like lemon blossom.
I like that. I think that's a great description.
And again, it's got that mid palate, you know, because you put it through malolactic and it fills in that palate. So but like with this one, as opposed to rosé, this is definitely high acidity because you feel you're salivating. It's mouth-watering.
Absolutely. I really like the feel. It's almost as if it was like an oily texture on my palate.
Yep. Yeah.
Very nice. I like that.
That comes from the malolactic and the yeast being in contact with the wine for longer. Yeah.
Well, because you do some on the lees stirring in the tank post ferment too.
Yeah. All of my secrets.
Lord.
Yeah. It's called surly, and surly usually is applied to barrel ferments.
Sorry.
usually applied to barrel ferments, but you can do it with stainless steel. And that's one of the things I learned when I was down in New Zealand, because they would like have these massive tanks just stirring the entire ferment. And I mean massive, because if you stir an active ferment, it tends to blow up. Because if you add a nucleation point to a fermenting beverage, it bubbles. So they would have these massive tanks, and they'd have these goofs just spinning, spinning, spinning. And one of the things I noticed is that like you get this mid-palate feel that's a lot of times lacking in stainless steel ferments, because part of the beauty of stainless steel ferments is you get them in, you get them cleaned up, you ferment them. You can literally have them out before Thanksgiving if you are on top of the production.
Ladies,
I think wine needs a little bit more time to settle down, and I like leaving it on lees for an extended amount of time.
it's like, I have to say it's fruit forward on my palate. It's citrusy. You were mentioning the higher acidity, but it's so smooth because of the MLF. It is just well balanced. It's not overly overpowering at all. Again, I would be just sipping this alone.
Well, this is
no judgment here.
This is the wine that my family's got a summer house out here, and this is what we have when we have like grilled clams on the grill. When we grill clams, and we'll usually like melt butter with them, and sometimes I'll put like a little sage in there with a little lemon juice, and this is just like the liquid version of that, because it still has that salinity too that you get from a lot of the seafood. And unintentionally, so the Saltburn wines go beautifully with the seafood out here.
Well, that's all about our place.
Well, that goes back to the question of what is terroir.
What is terroir? And this very much speaks to that. You know, so having been gone for 6 months, I haven't had this in 6 months. And I've just fallen in love with it all over again.
Wait till you have my gratitude.
Oh, yeah. It's got this really pretty sort of, well, don't die. Uh-oh, I killed her.
Falling in love all over again.
I'm falling in love.
Choking up love.
Yeah. Well, it's got like this, I don't want to call it beeswaxy, but it's this
it's
honey,
a waxy.
Yeah, a little bit waxy.
It's the diacetyl. It's from the yeast breaking down. That's exactly what it is. It's
and sort of melon and not a honeydew and not quite cantaloupe, but it's got, I don't know, it's textural and honeysuckle,
like muskmelon almost.
Yeah.
We do this.
Sounds lovely.
Nerds. As you can see, I have
I have
I appreciate it because sometimes I can't get that technical with other people. So the fact that you guys it's in normal conversation, I'm just in awe.
One of my favorite words ever.
Yes. To the point we should stop doing formal tastings and just have lawn parties.
I don't see why not.
Just hang out.
Next is the Serendipity White Blend.
Oh, Serendipity,
So this is one that I hadn't had for a while until I was making up the tasting kits, and I was like, oh yeah, this is why we love this wine.
Yeah. So Serendipity comes from the second brand that I started as If Wines, because Chronicle started as Brooklyn Enology, and since Robin joined me to make Saltburn, we've expanded into 5 different brands. And
it was only supposed to be temporary.
It was supposed to be temporary, but this has turned into an enterprise.
Very impressive, by the way. 5 brands. Winemakers. I mean, mind blown.
Impressive
or stupid. I'm not sure which. Maybe a little bit of both. But anyway, so it's a very personal story, and really the whole As If, or the name As If is AS are my initials, and If is about possibility and gratitude and luck and faith, and just trying to put something positive out into the world and say, holy cow, I found winemaking as a way of life, and to be able to just discover that, let alone pursue it and make that what I do to subsist every single day is an extraordinarily lucky thing. And so in contemplating, how did I get here and how did I get so lucky to have this life, there's sort of these keywords, these touchstones, if you will, that have cropped up in my life. And so the names of the wines are serendipity, courage, persistence, and gratitude. And so these wines are just really a very personal statement. And, they're not these crazy style of wines, but they're also not the usual suspects that you're going to find on a shelf.
No, this is definitely different, and I really love it.
Thanks. Thank you. Yeah. And I love blending. And what's becoming better known now, but a few years ago was not quite as well understood about wine, is that most of the great wines from great regions around the world are blends. And really the point of doing a blend is that the whole becomes greater than the sum of the parts, because it's there's a terrific additive and complementary effect that comes around from blending different varieties together. And it's not necessarily just, Sauvignon Blanc tastes like citrus and grass, and Chardonnay tastes like apples and vanilla if you put it into a barrel, and Viognier tastes like peaches and flowers. It's not like then all of a sudden you just have something that tastes like all these elements. By combining them, they create their own magic. What I like to joke around is calling, the molecules getting to know each other, right? In a very simplistic way of speaking. But by combining these sort of different magical bits of chemistry together, they create their own interactions and their own sequence of events that creates their own flavor profile. And so you don't really know what you're going to get until you put them all together. And these are three of my favorite grapes, white grapes, to work with: Sauvignon Blanc, Viognier, and Chardonnay. And I'm really fond of Chardonnay, not only as a stainless steel wine, but done in the way that's appropriate for Chardonnay. If it's in barrel, or there's so many different things you can do with Chardonnay, and it makes an amazing foundation for blends. It takes on other varieties so well. So the Sauvignon Blanc that's blended into this kind of forms that racy, citrusy acid backbone.
That's where I get honeydew in this. For
Yeah.
sure.
And the Viognier gives it all the florals and sort of those higher tone aromas and whatnot. And then just some time in the bottle with this wine. I haven't tasted this in 6 months either because I've been on the other freaking side of the world and haven't had access to my own stock.
Yeah.
But
this definitely has like that honeydew when you get close to the rind. It's that cleaner flavor.
Yeah.
I would say with your guide, ladies, you are exact. I smell that gala apple, the citrus, the melon, the botanicals. I mean, you did very well describing the wines for those who need a little bit more guidance. Even myself, I was probably just going to say apple or herbal, but the fact that you wrote down exactly which apple, I mean, I've had Gallo. I usually not.
There are a few orchards out here, so it's like during especially when I do a Shamrock Christmas tree farm. I do a farmer's market there, and the guy right next to me has 8 varieties of apples.
Yeah, and all those ciders and all that they do. Yeah. And they're distinct. You think apple is apple, but
no.
When you really when you have the 8 different varieties together and have them right next to each other, and one after the other,
and you're tasting wine and you're tasting apples, and it's like, oh, that's Fiji or Fuji or Fiji. Anyway, and then you've got that's why Honeycrisp is so amazing. It really is. Like, there's a reason why those dollars are those apples are $1 more per pound. Like they're delicious.
I love those apples. But and that's something that you learn to parse out, of course, as you go through time and experience, and you start to soak up these little things, and
and think to yourself, like, I remember when I first got into the industry, talking to Russell Hearn, who owns Subaru and Wine Group, how do I get better at tasting? He was like, go to the grocery store, smell and taste everything. But when you do it, think to yourself, this is what Gala apples smell like. This is what Myers lemon smells like. And the part of your brain that memorizes all this stuff is right next to the part of your brain that susses it out with your nose. So there's a reason why you can walk into a room and smell rosewater and think grandma. Because your grandmother wore rosewater, and no one probably ever told you that, but it triggers these memories, and it's something that just you don't control. It just happens.
Yeah, it's such
biochemistry
a,
is so much fun.
it is, yeah, because your sense of smell it's actually, it's such a, primitive is not the right word. It's actually a very advanced part of our sensory experience, but we live through it differently than, say, like animals, or specifically dogs, where that's how they recognize what
Right.
goes on around them. They don't talk to each other and say, oh, that's blue and that's yellow and this sounds like a gong and that sounds like a drum. Their world is, we identify our world primarily through sight and speech and sound, and we don't give a lot of natural conscious thought to your sense of smell, which is directly linked to your sense of flavor and taste. And so until you start specifically paying attention to it, it can be hard to sort of parse that out. So when you're first starting out with wine or in cooking, it can be like, I don't know if I can do it, but it's one of those things you keep hammering at it and hammering at it,
Right.
like anything else. Like, who's born knowing how to play the piano? Nobody's born knowing how to play the piano. You have to practice and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. It's exactly the same thing with your sense of smell.
And then all of a sudden, Velveeta cheese just doesn't cut it anymore. your grocery budget goes
Put that
way
Velveeta
up.
away.
Yeah. I can't eat American cheese anymore.
Yeah,
I can't
yeah.
even. It's just. I'm like, what is this? It's like cheesy
That's
plastic.
not cheese.
It's not. It's
It's
cheese
not
product.
Cheese.
Yeah.
Cheese product. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
but a
wine
lot of
product.
cheese is cheese product.
Yeah. Yeah.
You ladies are funny.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the reds. Thank you for the whites were amazing. The rosé was outstanding. But I'm ready to taste the red.
Mm-hmm.
So this is my newest release.
Oh yes.
This is 2018 Saltbird Cellars Merlot.
I haven't tried this at all yet.
Oh, that's right. You've been
First impression.
away.
Mm-hmm.
I made this thing.
While you were sleeping.
Yeah. So 2018 was a rather difficult vintage out here.
Yeah.
It was an early vintage. It was a cold vintage.
Yeah.
I normally make a blend called Harbinger, which is a Merlot, Cab Sauv, Petit Verdot blend. But in 2018, the Cab Sauv and the Petit Verdot and the Syrah, anything that I would have blended into it just didn't make it. Just didn't make it, and what did make it wasn't up to par to put into Harbinger. So the beautiful thing about Merlot, and the reason why there's so much Merlot on Long Island, is that it's ripe every year. Every single year, no matter what happens out here.
This is dangerous.
I know, it's really good.
This is dangerous.
Smells amazing. I didn't even taste it.
So, yeah, so rather than making a downgraded Harbinger, I decided to make a really phenomenal Merlot. And this comes from a really small vineyard site that's actually overlooked by one of our fellow winemakers. So this is
Outstanding.
some of the best fruit that you can get out of the North
I think
Fork.
all of October I'm not going to be sober.
And this right now, so it's still a baby. It's 2018. It's a baby. So right now I'm getting a lot of black tea, like Darjeeling tea.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And that's one of the characteristics of Long Island Merlot that you see over and over again. It's like, what? It's not herbaceous. It's black tea.
Yeah.
And the question is like, which black tea? And this is where, I can't even go to a tea house smelling all of the
Got to
jars.
smell all the teas. Yeah.
All the jars.
Yes, I have to say I am very impressed with how Long Island grows Merlot. On your guide here, I was most stunned. I had to do some research, but this ripe beach plum, never experienced it before. Did a little bit of research, and it's actually a plum that grows in sandy conditions like a beach. So
yeah.
It's all over the place around
It's
here.
everywhere out here. And
Yeah.
I grew up with like my grandmother making beach plum jam. And actually I still have all those jars in my basement. I have about 3 cases of beach plum jam in my basement right now. And it's something, and I've noticed out here, there is a correlation between a bumper crop of beach plum and Merlot.
Oh.
Yeah. Because last year we had, remember, like I had buckets and buckets of beach plum. And then we had tons and tons of
And
Merlot.
then Merlot was everywhere. Yeah.
But it only grows in sandy soil. I've tried to grow them at my house is further inland, and it's sandy soil, but it just doesn't grow. It almost needs to be right next to the water.
Mm-hmm.
And this Merlot is actually grown right next to the water.
Yeah, and beach plum you can really only find in the Northeast. Do you find it in the Mid-Atlantic at all?
I have no idea.
Yeah, it's not very widespread across the states. It's very specific.
I've seen like
mostly Massachusetts.
that have recipes from New England. Like it's definitely a New England thing.
Yeah. Yeah, but you don't find it in South Carolina, and
Yeah.
Florida,
And I don't think
or
it's even
definitely not on the West
related
Coast.
to plums trees. I think it's
No, because it's a shrub.
Yeah, it's a shrubbery. It's
Yeah.
it's a shrubbery.
Oh, here we go.
I have to say, I really love, again, I really love the Merlot from Long Island. I think it's exemplary, and well done. The nose alone is amazing. When you look back at this video, I'm pretty sure my eyes rolled back in my head. I love this for a reason. I love the fruit forwardness of it. So it's just, it's divine.
Yeah, and
I
it's
love that
still,
tea.
I mean, and it's got the acidity, so you keep going back, and
Yeah.
that's a lot of people kind of, you say acidity in red wine, and they're like, ooh, sour, bitter, but if you think of warm climate versus cool climate, like cool climate, it stays fresh. You go back for another glass. Every glass is different because you're constantly being refreshed because it's got that acidity that keeps it refreshing to you. Whereas when I lived out west, it was, half a glass into, a GSM, you're like, whoa, like, I need water. I need lemonade.
Yeah,
Like,
you just need to take a step back.
Something, yeah.
I just wanted to say, the comment that Anya says that she's seen.
Hi, Anya.
They're the Caribbean.
Hasn't been able to.
We should talk to Anya about a Vinette flavor because I want to do one with hibiscus and that Jamaican, I can't remember what they call it. There's like a
we have to talk.
Yeah, Anya.
Yeah, we got to talk.
Us.
Okay.
It's like nutmeg and hibiscus, and I see it grocery store around Christmas time, and I was like, why is it only Christmas time? And it turns out it's like
it's a holiday theme. Yeah. It's a special holiday thing. Okay, note to self. Cool. Yeah.
So, ladies, we're going to end our tasting wine flights to go with the Water Cove non-vintage.
Speaking of Merlot, this is a totally different animal. And it's an entirely different.
It's really are perfect for just two people to taste.
It is. This is fantastic. Yeah. So you can already see it's a different color. So it's a non-vintage. It's two vintages blended together, and it happens to be from warmer vintages. So that's why, it's displaying deeper color. And this is it's classic. This is classic Long Island Merlot
with a little bit of age on it.
Yeah, so
and a little bit more oak.
Yep.
But this has that umami character coming out.
Definitely have to agree with the berries and cherries. Cherries are exactly what I thought of when I first gave.
Yeah, like the big
maraschino.
Yes,
maraschino cherries.
Like when you get them fresh, not in the jar.
Yeah,
and not in a Shirley Temple.
Yeah,
like when you get them, like
not
fresh
when they're screaming like electronic nuclear red.
Right. Yeah. No, when they're actually black, like they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
I am getting the umami texture as well that you mentioned.
Yes, it's got a bit of a firmer tannin, a little bit of more that sort of velvet rug underlay, if you will. If you can imagine walking across a carpet in cooler weather kind of thing. Not the polyester, but velvet, silk velvet. Is that a thing? Silk velvet?
Maybe wool, a wool silk blend.
I'm getting awfully creative now. But yeah, it's a very classic style. But again, because Long Island is the kind of climate that it is, it's not a hot climate. It's a cooler climate, so you are able to maintain that acidity, which is what keeps Merlot interesting. And
you get the floral notes coming out. You get the aromatics coming out. You get
that sort of violet, that very subtle violet coming out of it.
And it's also lower in alcohol. Like usually the highest alcohols we get out here are 15 max in a really hot year.
Really hot.
Usually
And that's
more around
unusual.
13.
Yeah. 15 would be highly unusual.
Yeah.
So, 13 and a half, 13.7, 13.2, that's kind of the sweet spot for the alcohol level around here. And that works very well for Merlot, because Merlot really is not a grape that is meant for Central Valley, California summers where, you know, it's 110 and,
Well,
you know,
yeah.
I mean,
I wouldn't go
depending
that
on-
far, but it
well,
should,
depending
it
on
should
the
almost have a
diurnal-
different name.
yeah.
You know, like
Right.
it should be like
Mm-hmm.
warm climate Merlot, cool climate Merlot,
Yeah.
warm climate Cab Franc, cool climate Cab Franc, because they are completely different animals. And, you know, I'm really happy I went and did a vintage in Paso Robles, and I was at a winery that did Chardonnay and Merlot and a lot of the varietals that we have out here, because they're just completely different creatures.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
everything about even the vineyard, the winemaking, everything's different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like we had sorting tables out there to remove grapes, to remove raisins.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Because it would be too much out here. If we saw a raisin on a clump,
We'd be like,
we'd be
woohoo!
like, whoa, maybe we get
What's
14 bricks. Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
it just doesn't happen. Whereas there, it was like a whole different sorting table because it was specifically designed to remove that.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's Merlot and so very clonal dependent as well. You know,
Yeah.
so you want to pick the right clones to go into your right location and soils, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you know, and also Merlot is one of these grapes where if it is you don't have the right clone in the right place, in the right location with the right diurnal temperature,
swing.
temperature fluctuations, it can get overbaked, and it can create a wine that's a little one-note Sally.
Yeah.
You know, and reduces in its acid and therefore is, you know,
Yeah.
sort of unbalanced and
The
not
nice,
terribly life. It doesn't have enough
Yeah.
life in it, you know.
the nice thing about being out here now is I remember when I first got involved in the industry in 2003, which wasn't that long ago, right? It wasn't that long ago. I remember the winemakers telling me, like, it's too bad you weren't here in the past because, you know, it was so much fun. It was new. We did these dinners. We did these tastings. And I'm like, I'm kind of liking it now because the
Mhm.
right clones are getting planted. Like,
Right.
the pioneers out here, like, they did
So much trial and error,
so much trial and error.
and we have the
and-
benefit of
Yeah,
all that.
of learning from them, you know. And that was when I first came out with Saltbird. A lot of people were like, what are you going to do differently? And I was like, different? I'm going to listen to the guys I've been working with for the last 10 years and
Yeah.
everything they've been telling me, and I'm going to
Mhm.
apply it to how I want to make wines for me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, like, I wasn't like, I'm coming in here like a rock star, like, you don't know what you're doing. Like,
Mm.
let me tell you. No, like, they knew what they were doing. They knew what worked. And if
Mhm.
you listen, you know,
Yeah.
like going back to the Disney movie Brave, just listen, you know?
I haven't seen that one.
Oh, God, great.
Oh,
I love it. All right. Movie night with Eleanor.
Yeah. All right.
You know, so, and that's, you know, especially Long Island, we've had a lot of these winemakers that have come out from other places, and rather than meeting with the guys who are out here, they've just been like, I'm going to be the one to bring Long Island to its fullest potential. It's like, okay,
All right.
we'll
Yeah.
you know, open the door for you in 3 years so you can go back to California. It's a different place. It's just a different place. And
Yeah.
you need to listen to the people that have figured this out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very blessed to work with some vineyard managers out here that have been doing it from the beginning. You know, like vineyards and-
Mhm.
And I have to say, with that note, it's what's making you both ladies succeed. I mean,
Yeah.
again, 5 different brands, you know, like all just you two. I mean, it's very impressive. I enjoyed the flight very much, ladies. I do want to move into the quick interview question.
Yeah.
Sure.
Please. Yeah.
Okay, so we are going to say, sorry, we didn't even share that. So again, if you are interested in purchasing it, this is the website where you can purchase this wine tasting flight to go. It is chroniclewines.co,
Yeah.
right? So the first question is, how long have you ladies been making wine?
Forever.
For me, since 2006, and you as well, I think. Yeah.
No, well, I started in the lab at Premium Wine Group in 2003,
Yeah.
right out of college.
Yeah.
I launched Saltbird in 2014.
Yeah. But you were dabbling well before that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I
Remember
made
you did
that Chardonnay.
in 2007.
Yes.
Was that 2006 or 7?
2007.
Yeah.
So I did a little, it
Mhm.
was not a bathtub. It was in proper tanks.
No,
But
it was
yeah,
a good wine.
I did a
was a very good
little
wine.
1.5 ton ferment of the original, like, stainless steel Chardonnay.
Yeah.
And it was really good.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a license or anything, so I sold it all to Alie.
Yeah.
Here, you want it? Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some good. We enjoyed some
And
volume.
you worked with the wine that it got blended into too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was an award-winning wine
With
with somebody else's name and label.
We've
and
been
blended it.
collaborating since 2007.
Yes, we have.
Mhm.
Yep.
That-
I count 2006 when we first met.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Alie,
Yeah.
we met because I was running the lab, and Alie came in very smartly to learn about winemaking and enology
And lab
by
work and
doing it.
Yeah.
And she worked as my assistant for 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then she left me
I
for
did
Brooklyn.
not.
For Brooklyn.
I did not. I never left you,
They
darling.
always come back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So I mean, I've been in the winery in some form since 2003.
Mm,
Yeah.
amazing. And how long have you been? How did you both get into winemaking? Like, what was your? How did you know this was your calling or your passion?
It was totally by accident.
Yeah.
I
Same.
needed a job while I studied for my MCATs,
Mm-hmm.
and then never took the test.
Yeah, and I am degreed as an engineer, and I had been doing that professionally for a number of years. Long story short, after I graduated from college, I ended up in the Silicon Valley.
Cornell, too smart.
Ish. Ended up in Silicon Valley in the mid '90s, in the first, .com boom time, when everything was being made out there. So I was in the manufacturing sector, and at that point, wine was already a hobby, which was influenced by
Being at Cornell in the Finger Lakes.
Yeah, well, one being at Cornell in the Finger Lakes,
Yeah.
and then post graduation ending up in the Bay Area and close to a lot of wine regions. And after 4 years in California, returned to New York, but to the Hudson Valley. And it was a rather abrupt return, and I didn't have another job lined up, and I wasn't completely sure what I wanted to do next. So I decided I'll do a fun job for a while, and that ended up being at a tasting room in the Hudson Valley, and that was in 2000, and that just started everything tumbling. So
the wine industry is very
it sucks you right in.
It sucks you
Yeah,
in, and it's very hard to walk away from too.
Yeah.
I've never tried.
Yeah. After that, I knew I wanted to go right towards it. So for a long time, I was doing engineering by day and wine by nights and weekends, working my way through the industry. Basically getting retraining by taking second jobs and working in restaurants and working in tasting rooms, working in retail, taking courses, and eventually jumped full time to a distributor where I was working in a marketing and promotions program, at which, and I was trying to make my way to a point where I could subsist on a wine industry salary. And the intention was to make wine, at some point in my 50s or 60s.
Me too.
Yeah. But then
I'll eventually make my own wine.
Yeah.
No.
And then eventually, but then, you get to a point where you ask yourself, okay, do I think I can really live this lifestyle? Because it is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And it's not easy.
And it's not a lifestyle of like drinking wine and eating cheese all day.
No, because it's a business. So you're doing all the business things. You have to do accounting, you have to do insurance, you have to do that. It's not like you're sitting around tasting all day long, you
And
still
some
have
days
to
you're making wine boxes and putting stickers on boxes
Yeah.
and cleaning floors. And 90% of winemaking is cleaning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I've done some research in the harvesting process, and it is mostly cleaning.
Yeah, and we get somms a lot that are like, I want to come work harvest. And it's like, okay, you want to start training? Go wash every bucket in your garage, and then clean the garage floor, and then clean all of the garage, and then we'll talk.
But yeah, it's a lot of nitty gritty stuff, and then your reward is the fun things like blending and tasting, and when harvest season comes, you can actually ferment, and the rest of it is cleaning,
paying excise tax,
it's hospitality, keeping up with your tax returns, and all of that stuff. And it's a 24/7. It's a 24/7, 365 life, because it's not just manufacturing. It's also,
Yeah, the manufacturing happens Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and then on the weekends is when the restaurant somms are giving you orders for the following week. And
yeah, it's also hospitality on weekends and evenings and so on. So,
yep.
What varietals do you ladies work with?
Oh, lots.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm mostly in the whites. It's Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, play with Albarino when I can find it. Cab Franc for rosés, Merlot for the red, a little bit of Syrah, Petit Verdot, Cab Sauv thrown in there. And last year I joked that it was my throwback to the 80s vintage where I only made Chardonnay and Merlot. And they're great. They're wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's not like we make everything, every vintage. We make what works in that vintage.
Well, that's the beauty of being negociants, is that we can play and we can buy other grapes.
Like,
adjust according to what Mother Nature demands. I also work with Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, a little bit of Viognier, Pinot Gris. In the past, I've worked with Riesling. I do work with Gewürztraminer quite a lot, but not in the traditional sense. I ferment it as an orange wine, and also do an orange wine pet net with it.
We'll have to talk about that later.
Oh yeah,
yes. We're trying to figure out how to get that in the tasting kit because it's not as easy to package the sparkling.
Yeah, it's hard to do sparkling in the tasting kit. And then in the reds, I'm a huge Cabernet Franc fan, and Petit Verdot, and I also work with Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah, Malbec, as appropriate for whatever wine it is or whatever I'm making. So, but I think my favorites are Cabernet Franc and Petit Verdot. Those are
my favorites.
Yeah.
Not my favorites.
I have to say, Cabernet Franc and Merlot is grown very well.
It is, yeah.
It really is stunning, and I know when I talk about it on my Instagram, people always give me comments like, no. I'm like, no, but I'm telling the truth.
Well, because there was, what was it, 15 years ago, there was a lot of mediocre Merlot coming out of the Central Valley, really mediocre. And it was cheap. And it was, you'd pick up a $10 bottle of Merlot and we're completely underwhelmed.
And that happens a lot with whatever's the hot buzz grape of the day.
Right.
It becomes the hot buzz grape of the day, and then it becomes planted absolutely everywhere. And it becomes that ubiquitous wine that you find on every single shelf. And so when you have that much volume of any one thing, there's a lot of room for very average or less than average. And
it's production, I mean, the good Cab Francs out here are the ones where the train's going to be going by in a minute.
Oh yeah. And the railroads about to come through.
The railroads right there. So, Cab Franc on Long Island, it grows like a weed, like an absolute weed.
Yeah.
But if you do green pruning and you cull it back, you can make some really, really stunning Cab Francs. If you just leave the full crop load out there, it will never fully ripen.
Yeah.
And you'll end up with this herbaceous, for me, it's a specific tomato stem.
Yeah.
And that's whenever she brings me something, I'm like, no, it's not ripe. It's not ripe. All right, Amy, you might want to mute us for a hot second because the train.
In the meantime, I want to give my quick review about the wine tasting kit while the train is passing by over there. I would have to say, rating 5 out of 5, simply because not only is it very accessible, so again, it is 5 wines in your tasting kit. You're probably going to get a rosé, maybe. You're going to get some whites. You're going to get some reds. Again, it's going to be varied month to month, like a subscription box, which is what makes them stand out the most. So far, my favorites from today would have to be the Serendipity. I was a fan of the acidity. The fact that there was Viognier in there, the floral notes was predominant. Sauvignon Blanc is one of my other favorite varietals besides Riesling, but I have to say that stood out the most as a white. For the reds, I would have to say I enjoyed the Merlot, the Saltburn Cellars 2018 vintage. It was very inviting, as well as I have to also give accolades to the Haywater Cove because it was very different in which it was very cherry forward. I have never experienced that before. So again, it was very different, something that you kind of need to study if you're doing blind wine tasting. Very different. So don't think that Long Island wines are not worthy of trying. It is very worthy of trying because these winemakers, especially Alie and Robin, are working very hard to make it stand out. We have the same latitude regarding to Bordeaux. So we do grow Cabernet Franc and Merlot very well, as well as the white varietals that we mentioned today. So again, I'm going to put them back on to discuss the next question. What is your favorite wine to drink in your brand?
Right now, it's the Vignettes. Yeah.
Oh, but this is kind of like
Vignette.
Turn it the other way.
Yes. So this is the wine.
Yeah.
Brand.
Yeah.
Oh, I can turn this one up because This is our latest project, and we were just discussing this right before we got onto this call with you. That it's our basically just past our 1 year anniversary for launching the Vignette Spritzers.
Yep.
So these are our wine spritzers made by winemakers. So you know that they're going to be
delicious.
if we're drinking it, you're going to want to drink it because it's wine that we make.
Yep.
And it filtered water, wine grape juice, and just a little bit to give it a little body. And we try to use as natural flavorings as possible.
Extracts
When possible. And
natural.
then, so we don't use weird chemicals and things like that.
Yeah.
Very simple recipe.
Yeah.
And so we call it, they're dry wine spritzers because they're not like sweet. They're not like Jolly Rancher candies. And, as both of us further along in our experience in life, we want to have something that is not going to knock us on our butts quite as much.
Well, and it was also, the summer we came up with these, I had to go gluten-free and not allergic. Definitely an issue, though.
Yeah. Sensitive.
Sensitive, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I'm miserable. I miss my bread.
Oh.
And my beer. We're at Mustache Brewery right now, surrounded by beer.
Yeah.
But we were making these in the tasting room, and we were also doing sneaking them into our Yetis and going wherever. But they're great because you can grab them and go to the beach. Yep, and we're doing a promotion next weekend with Nofo Doco.
North Fork Donut Company, who's
amazing. I went there at least twice this
Oh my
summer.
God, they're so good.
Oh, it's insane.
It's amazing donuts.
You think you know donuts.
Wait,
You know donuts until you've been to
And I
this
love
place.
their business model. They have donuts until they sell out. So they're fresh every day. They're not, they're not getting there the night before and make a donut. They're fresh. They're done right away. And they're thoughtful too.
Yeah.
Flavor combinations they have are awesome. Yeah, so they did 2 custom donuts to go with the rosé vinette and another one with the
And so there's the red wine spritzer. So which might sound weird, but red wine spritzer is amazing.
Yeah.
With orange and cardamom. So it's
I think the best sangria you've ever had in your life.
Yeah. And it's but not Christmassy at all.
Sangria is not Christmassy.
No, but you think of a red wine cocktail as
right.
No, but yeah. We did a bang up job with these, I have to say. Yeah. So we've been working on.
They're very COVID friendly too.
Yeah.
Yes, they have been. Like I said, twice. We drove out to Mattatuck. Now they opened their location in Bayshore. So we'll probably stop there first as it's a little bit closer. But if I'm in the area, I'm going to have to.
Yeah. Well, we're doing a fun pre-order. So you can order the donuts so they will make them fresh that day and drop them off at the tasting room.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the donut that's going with the rosé pomegranate lime vinette is a superfruit vanilla. Is that right? Superfruit vanilla. So it's got an acai berry flavor frosting topped with fresh berries. And then the orange cardamom has got a cardamom crumb, and I think it's like an orange cream inside or something.
Yeah.
It's in.
Yes, it
I
sounds
put it out of my mind until I could have it.
Yeah, because if I think about it too much, by the time they get to the tasting room on Friday,
I'm sorry, can we have more samples to taste? We need
Yeah.
to taste these again.
these poor people who pre-ordered, they're not going to have any left because I've eaten them all.
Yeah.
I'm very excited for this. For those who are local and living on Long Island, this is a must.
Yeah.
You have to pre-order. This donut company is very popular. These ladies work very hard on the vinette, so we have it together as a food pairing. So
just throw whatever healthy diet thing you're doing right out the window.
Yeah, your Noom app
Right
or
out the window.
Weight Watchers.
I don't care which program you're on, you're
Just
going
put
to
it on
throw that
pause for
right
the
out the
day.
window. Yeah. Because I'm throwing my program.
But it's
out
a
the window.
side berries. I mean, it's good for you, really.
Right.
It's
Well,
all
it's a
antioxidants.
balance.
It's good for you.
It has fruit in it.
It's good for you.
It has fruit.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. You'll be okay.
absolutely. So, ladies, the last question of the evening will be: how would you explain your winemaking style?
Oh.
I think the one thing that we definitely have in common is that it's not pretentious. Like we both definitely take the approach that these are wines that are
I'm
meant
very
to be
serious.
accessible. Yeah, she's a geek. She's not serious.
Very serious.
No, it's funny. Like we say all the time, like we take the wine seriously, but not ourselves.
Yeah.
Because that was something when I was coming up through WSET, and you probably saw it even more because you were a few years ahead of me with that. It's that, sometimes the wine world can be, especially when you get into higher end restaurants, very pretentious, and it scares people.
There's no reason it should.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's a beverage.
That's meant to be paired with wine,
Yeah.
with friends, around a table.
Yeah. Yeah. What the whole purpose of wine, like beer, like spirits, like anything else, is the point is to be together.
Yeah.
The point is to not just socialize, but have moments together, have a meal. And this is what makes that meal entertaining and fun and something to talk about.
Yeah, you were talking about molecules coming together. It's people coming together.
It's people
molecules
coming together. Yeah. Why do you have dinner together? Because you want to be together. And it's the same thing for wine or anything else. And it's to give you some pleasure, because if we wait around our whole lives for big things to happen, we're going to wait. So you need to enjoy the smaller things, and we eat and drink every day. Yep. And it should be good, and it should be quality,
especially
if you
right
can.
now. Enjoy every day. Enjoy every minute.
And so that belongs to everybody.
Yeah.
That belongs to everybody, everyone, anytime. And so, yes, we're serious about what we make, but it's not about being exclusionary or, beyond what you can reach.
Right.
It's really
and I don't
about
think
connecting.
either one of our wines really fit in the box.
Yeah.
And that's something, when you read the textbooks and the Bibles and all that stuff, it's like Merlot should be this. And it's like, no, Merlot should be a reflection of that time, that place, that terroir, whatever definition of terroir you have. And it should be an expression of yourself. And that's where we diverge. So if you were to take, I think our two top red wines would be the best example of this.
Yeah.
So I do the Harbinger, which is 80% Merlot, 20% Cab Sauv is the current blend. That varies a little bit.
Yeah.
It's very like ooey gooey, very smooth,
Liquid
very
velvet.
like let's just go with the moment, which is how I kind of am. And then the persistence is very structured, and there's layers and there's complexity, but it's still, they're both delicious and they're both approachable. And
and they're completely different grapes. That's Cab Franc and
Yeah.
Petit Verdot and Cabernet Sauvignon. So they're very much our personalities.
and our preferred grapes.
Yeah. But as partners in winemaking, they're very complementary to each other. So, you can get something really distinct and unique from either of us, but also see why we work together.
Yeah,
Because
they do complement each other. And that's
Both complement each other as
too, is that you can come in and there's something for everybody there pretty much. Unless you want that, fruit bomb, high alcohol from the West Coast. We don't make those.
We don't do
No.
that.
We appreciate them. We love them.
That has its time and place.
Yeah.
That has its time and place.
But it's, we're
We
not
just don't happen to exist in that time and place.
No, and we're not
Yeah.
trying to make, Napa cabs on Long Island.
Because we're not in Napa.
No,
We're on Long Island.
no, we're making wines for the here and now.
yes, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think, like I said, Long Island is totally underrated. I think, you know, when they say New York wines, everyone flocks to the Finger Lakes. However, it's about Long Island. So.
Well, and that's where the Finger Lakes they've got their Riesling and they've got their brand delivery as a region.
Yeah.
You know, out here,
and also that's their own thing. That's their own
Right.
niche as well.
Right.
You know, like all of New York doesn't have to be all the same.
No.
You know,
Right.
it isn't all the same.
Yeah.
Right.
We've got our characters, we've got our different varietals, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the nice things about the North Fork and the east end of Long Island, really, is that we have this really long growing season. So you've got sparkling wine in the same place that you have Syrah.
Yeah.
That's not
Where
normal.
else does that happen?
That doesn't really happen anywhere else.
Yeah. The variety that you can get
Yeah.
in our region is spectacular.
Yep.
It's mind-boggling. People, you know, if I'm in Australia, people are asking, oh, so, you know, what are the main varieties?
varieties?
Yeah, and it's like,
There's so many.
I could I'm like, okay, so we need to sit down and can you remember 40 different things? Because I'm about to tell you 40 different things that we do. And it's constantly evolving and changing, and people are experimenting and that's, I think, what's exciting for us here, because we're both very technical and very creative, in that we've got so many different things that are possible that we can play with, and
we can apply the scientific method to stuff all day
Oh my
long.
God.
Yeah.
That's exciting. I don't know if you ladies know, but I'm a scientist by day. And
I didn't know that.
Oh.
I'm an enthusiast by night. So again, after we chat tonight, you can stay within the studio, and I'd love to just throw across a few questions for you.
Ladies in STEM.
Yes.
Love it.
But ladies, I just want to thank you for the broadcast that we've done. We had a lovely interview. I think we highlighted your wine flights to go very well. I said my favorites of the evening. I think you work very hard. I know it's just the beginning of harvest, so best of luck to you and the crew that you have. And thank you so much for taking out the time for tonight. So
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have this opportunity with you, and hopefully we
Cheers,
get to do it
Amy.
again. Until next time.
Until next time.
stick around within the studio, and we'll chat a little bit more.
Sounds great.
Okay, you Wine World, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment below. I will forward it to these ladies, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great night.
How's it going?